Just fall through it.
You should have hit me up. I could have given you some advice.
I mean, I felt like it wasn't that big of a deal. It's just, put like that. If I still couldn't talk yesterday, I would have let y'all know, like, hey, what y'all think. But I was able to talk on
You need that voice rest.
the what?
Voice rest.
Voice rest?
Voice rest and voice hygiene.
I don't know. I don't know what it was.
I don't know what that is. What is voice hygiene? What is?
It sounds like some
You
kind
drinking
of
lots of
techniques.
water, avoiding like diuretics, anything that's gonna like dry out the larynx.
You could have just said
Hot tea.
You need to drink more water.
I mean, but then I had to go through that whole voice rest. I mean, that's a lot to go
I mean,
through.
I kinda
just
got
voice
what you were
hygiene,
saying.
You know, take care of yourself. Take care of your voice. Don't whisper. Don't shout. Try to
Don't
minimize.
whisper?
Don't whisper. Yeah, it puts as much strain on the voice as shouting. You know, almost.
Really?
Yeah. So don't whisper.
That's
Don't
good
shout.
to know.
You just want to, minimize how often you use your voice.
Wait, whispering uses your voice just as much.
Whispering, you're contracting your vocal cord muscles, so you're putting a lot of strain on your voice. So you don't want to whisper.
You want to talk
You don't
regular?
want to shout. You just want to minimize
It makes
the
sense.
amount of your voice use.
It makes sense. Hey,
As
Yeah.
something about that. just
Protect your
doesn't sound
vocals.
right.
I mean, I get it.
Hey, you're a professional voice user right now.
Right. So
So
you gotta.
now you gotta take care of
talk in a
yourself.
even, stable tone.
So you're saying that if I just whispered all day, that like my voice
That-
would be just as sore as if I screamed
Whisper
all
right
day?
now.
I am whispering right now.
It's like how I tell my patients, like, your eyes are the most comfortable when they're looking at things at a distance. See, when you're looking at something up close, you're putting strain on your eyes.
Yeah, but that's not the same.
It is.
I mean,
exactly
it's
the
kind of
same.
similar.
Because I'm.
Because you would think
blind
something, you would
as a
think
bat.
seeing something up close is easier for your eyes to see. When in reality, your eyes are more comfortable when looking at things far. That's their relaxed state. Which is why when people get older and they start having a problem with their eyes, they can't see things up close because now their muscles are fatigued out. So they need reading glasses.
Yeah, but that's not analogous to me. Like, so he's saying that like if you whisper,
Yeah.
you're using just as much of your.
Well, how most people whisper. I mean, there's ways you can kind of use your, your voice where you're not necessarily using certain muscles. Like a lot of people come in because they just forgot or are not using their voice properly, and they're like overcompensating using the incorrect muscles. Like we actually have a structure called the false vocal cords as opposed to the true vocal cords.
All right.
Yeah.
So the moral of the story is talk regular.
No, I
Whatever
mean, you
that
can
is.
you can project, you can like increase your volume. I'm speaking more to when your voice is hoarse or you feel like your voice is going out. Like if you got laryngitis or you just been shouting all night, So,
Yeah, but all right. So if I go to a concert though, like I can scream at a concert for an hour and be hoarse. If I whisper just for a straight hour, are you going to say? I mean, are you saying that I'd still be just as hoarse as if I screamed?
potentially. How many people whisper for an hour?
Yeah,
Oh,
people
sure.
ain't really
That's-
gonna do that though.
Yeah.
Unless you like the Yin Yang Twins.
Right.
The whisper song. Hey, after their concert, they be like, man, I don't know what happened. I can't even talk no more. All we doing is whisper song.
You ever seen that movie Silent Place? Is it called Silent Place? Where like you
Oh
have to be
yeah.
extremely
With
silent.
with the old boy from The Office.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh boy, from
What's
the
it called?
office.
I don't know his name.
It's
Shit.
called Silent Place. I think.
Silent
The
place.
Silent Place. I think
Is it
it's
the
Silent,
Silent
Place.
Place? Yeah, I think
If it ain't, we're both wrong, but we know what we're
Yeah,
talking
yeah.
about.
What is
There's
on,
a part two.
Yeah. I've seen it.
It's on Netflix.
It was
could
an actual
be.
movie, but it
Yeah.
might be on Netflix.
The Silent Place sounds pretty good.
It is pretty good. Like I thought. It was
I mean, the
pretty
gist of it is there's some evil. I'm not say evil, but some kind of creatures.
good. Kind of alien creature
Yeah,
that comes down.
and they attack you when they hear noise. So everybody that's alive, almost like Walking Dead, but you have to be quiet the whole time.
It's the moment that they hear like anything.
So why would you talk?
You don't talk.
Well, you
You
don't.
try not to.
You try not to, yeah. But the
then-
problem is they had a baby.
Yeah.
So that was
I mean,
the
they're
problem.
humans, so naturally you want to talk.
Yeah.
Talk to your family members and things, but
But they
They'll
learn
learn how to sign.
oh yeah.
Well, yeah,
oh, they
like,
did
over time.
Yeah, they did.
Well, yeah, like they learn how to.
Yeah.
That sounds like a terrible movie. No
Oh no,
thanks.
it's really good.
I ain't gonna lie. The more that we talk about it, it doesn't really sound that good, but
It doesn't sound that good, but it is really.
but it was
good.
a good movie.
Yeah.
Hey, check it out. The Silent Place. I think we're saying the wrong title.
Silent. I thought it was Silent Place. I don't know.
It might be.
Well, is this a movie with Sandra Bullock?
No. That's Bird Box, and that's
Box,
but
okay.
you can't see it.
I never saw that movie.
Yeah.
Oh, that movie is good too.
I
It's
I
alright.
purposely didn't see that movie because everybody on Facebook was talking about how you need to see Bird Box. And I was like, I'm going against the machine. I refuse to watch that damn movie because y'all all telling me to watch that damn movie.
A Quiet Place.
There you go, yeah, A Quiet Place. That's why I knew Silent Place didn't sound right. A Quiet Place,
I said, God, give me a warning. Please take me for the morning, so I leave more disappointments than I ever will appointments. Give a fuck about your feelings, rub it in. This your ointment can't depend on the oinker. Find your pick in the blanket, find a stick. Through your anus, give a rib for your statement.
Welcome to First and 15, the only podcast that's trying to get you paid. I'm here with two-time FFPC champion AB. Alongside him is my guy, Dio the Machine. Guys, I want to jump right in and talk about a topic that kind of had our group chat going crazy. Let's talk about the Buffalo Bills for a second. Now, we all know how last season ended. Playoff loss, home playoff loss to the Cincinnati Bengals, 27-10. We all saw, Stephon Diggs go crazy on the sideline. Listen, I want to ask a simple question because I looked at an interview that was 2 weeks after the game on the Dan Patrick show. Mm-hmm. And Dan Patrick was asking Stephon Diggs about the incident, about, hey, I understand that you were upset. And most receivers, even diva receivers, 2 weeks after the game, says, listen, these are emotions, it's in the height of the game. I'm a competitor. Stephon didn't say that. Like, he said, hey, we had a game plan and we moved away from our success or things that made us successful after week 9. He pointed out week 9. And then he said that, hey, this is why we were not successful in that game, and I was frustrated.
Well, looking back, it was just a that season that kind of shook out the way it did. I feel like the first 9 weeks we had a kind of like a formula, like a recipe for winning, and we kind of got away from it on the back end. You know what I'm saying? We were creating ways to win, but it just how we were winning wasn't as smooth as the first 9 weeks. Yeah. So, and I kind of attested that just throughout the season. We had a lot of ups and downs, and individually, just trying to keep things tied together. It was just some crucial moments in the year that, late in the season, late in the fourth quarter, it was opportunities and we didn't take advantage of. So I feel like that last I guess series or that last play, when you saw frustration, it wasn't necessarily just that play, but those moments built up to it.
Culmination.
It's and for me, it was up to this point, we've seen quarterback and receivers as far as tandems and guys who play at a high level, and every quarterback has their guy. In those moments, you are the guy. You know what I'm saying? And up to this point, I've been the guy for my team and for my quarterback. So in those moments, of course, I want the ball. You know what I'm saying? I'm never will apologize for that. I'll show you a good loser. I'll show you a loser. You know what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, in that moment, it was fourth and whatever. Of course, I was one-on-one on the backside, and I wanted to put us in a position to win. So, I'll never apologize for passion because we.
So not only did he not apologize or, try to make some excuse about the sideline antics, but then he kind of explained that, hey, we moved away from what made us successful and explained why he was upset at Josh Allen, which lets me know that he was really upset at Josh Allen. Mm-hmm. Do you guys think that this is cause for concern, or is it just a nothing burger?
I mean, I literally was laughing when when this ended the group chat. Mm-hmm. I get it. I mean, it's the off season, so these stories are gonna definitely be the highlights of a number of different shows and topics. It's gonna be something that's gonna be all over Twitter. But to me, a couple different things. So I'll approach it from a fantasy standpoint. To me, there's really no impact when it comes to fantasy because, number one, he's a wide receiver. You can call him a diva wide receiver. I think that, word is a bit antiquated. Yeah. But you can say he's a diva wide receiver, but he showed up. Okay, he didn't practice initially, but he showed up and then he practiced. Yeah. And then, the coach initially said that, that there was an issue and he was concerned that Steph Diggs was not there. Mm-hmm. Then after he showed up and practiced, the coach said, basically, we're all good. Not verbatim, but to that degree that we're all good now. Then you had Josh Allen come out and, do what a franchise quarterback should do and try to squash the situation. But he came in and he basically said, Steph Diggs is our guy. We can't win without Steph Diggs. And that's just not talk. They literally cannot win with Steph Diggs. There's no other wide receiver on that team that's a legit wide receiver one, So for me, they need Steph Diggs. Steph Diggs needs them. Steph Diggs is under contract. And just kind of get into like the non-fantasy aspect of it, like, why are we getting upset, or why would anybody get upset or like kind of talk down or in a negative way that the guy was upset that they lost? Okay, you can say that maybe he was selfish, but the guy was mad that they lost.
He was more than mad that they lost. He was mad at a particular guy, considering that they lost.
Who was he mad at?
He was mad at Josh Allen.
Oh, really?
So I'm sure, I wasn't in the building, I wasn't in the room. I don't necessarily know. He may have been mad at Josh Allen or whoever put up the game plan, from week 9 on. But basically, if his thing is like, look, we got away from this, we tried it, and it resulted in loss or resulted in us not playing as well as we should play. Like, for me, like, I'm taking that as like the guy is passionate, okay? The guy has a lot of emotions. And I like my players emotional because that emotion usually translates to the field. As long as it doesn't lead to poor play on the field, I don't mind. It's the offseason. We're in May? Like, none of this is going to carry over. They got so many veteran players in this locker room that these guys are like looking at this and laughing that this is even a story from their end, in my opinion. So,
well, then how do you explain though? And Dio, like, talk about this for a second. If you don't believe that is spilled over, how do you explain Sean McDermott saying that Diggs didn't report for camp when they knew that he was in the building, and his agent having to correct him and then them having to walk it back? It seems like some of that is kind of spilling over, and some guys are still upset at Steph Diggs, and that it's going to go into this season. Like, would you just overlook that?
I mean, you know how I feel. There's something going on in Buffalo. You know, it's a lot of smoke, and it's not just Diggs, it's not just Josh Allen. It's really the whole team, front office, everybody. And this is just kind of just stepping away from the fantasy view of it all. That loss to the Bengals last year, just hearing you talk about it, and it just more solidifies in my mind, they took that very, very hard. I mean, they went into the season as the potential Super Bowl favorites. Yep. Even going into the playoffs, didn't they have the number 1 seed? Or I think they lost the number 1 seed to the Chiefs because of the whole Hamlin thing that happened. But leading into that, people still view them as the favorites to win the Super Bowl. So you could just kind of imagine how that locker room was throughout the whole year. You know, we have this goal. It's almost Super Bowl or bust, and they don't even get to the AFC Championship. Like, they don't even get to the game prior to the Super Bowl. And we saw how everything unfolded during the game. We saw Stephon Diggs getting mad on the sideline, like you were saying. I mean, that's a thing, and it's not something I think we should just totally just ignore. A lot of that stuff in the locker room, if chemistry's not there or if emotions are high, I think it can affect the play on the field. Now, like Abby said, we are right now in June. So, we're a long way from week 1. We're a long way from even, the grind of the actual in-season time period. So this all might be nothing, but, it can also be the beginning of something bigger, And again, just kind of taking the fantasy aspect of it, not only did the stuff happen with the game, but, the whole Leslie Frazier thing I was hearing about, they said he kind of left the team for whatever reason on his own merit. Reports came out recently that he is actually relieved of his duties. Keep in mind, prior to that, he was actually interviewing for head coaching jobs. He didn't get any, obviously. And you would think a guy that doesn't get a head coaching job, but a hot head coaching candidate would just go right back to where he came from. Literally every other coach does. But that didn't happen with him, I mean,
they've been exposed multiple times now, though, in the playoffs by these elite teams.
Right,
so I think, so to me, like, these are like all different separate, like,
No.
incidents.
Okay, so hear what you're saying. They were exposed. And if that's the reason, I get it. But that's not what the narrative that was put out.
Right.
The initial narrative that was put out was he left on his own merit. Now, if they did relieve him of his duties or fire him, that's fine. But they didn't say that.
I don't know, but I don't know what that has to do with, like, how, like, if Buffalo sucks this year is because they just suck. Like, Buffalo's going to make the playoffs, okay? I don't think that they're a Super Bowl team right now. Even if everything was completely just like, kosher and on the up and up. Like, the team is who their team is. They're trying to get better. They brought in some acquisitions on the defense.
Right, but I'm not talking about what the team is going to do this season. I'm talking about what unfolded. I'm
Right.
talking about how everything has gone up to this point. So again, the Leslie Frazier thing is a thing. I don't think we totally ignore. Let's go back to what you're saying as far as the Diggs in practice. So Diggs did show up prior to minicamp. He did his medicals. He was there. Everybody assumed he was going to show up at practice, which is what kind of made that conflicting reports where the agent was like he was there, the team was like he wasn't there. Come the first day of minicamp, he didn't show.
Right,
right.
right.
Again, the day before he was there, so they knew he was in town, but he wasn't there. And then that was a day where everybody made a big deal out of it on Twitter. Diggs didn't show up to practice. It was affecting his ADP. I saw in some drafts. Everybody was getting interviewed, and the coach was saying, like what Abby was saying, I'm concerned, yada, yada, yada. Honestly, stuff like that, I don't really read too much into that. I honestly don't really read too much of anybody when they make their comments. Coaches, players, because I feel like there's no incentive for a coach or a player to give the outside world all the information, all the tea. You know, so I don't really see a benefit. So I kind of ignore that. I kind of look more at the actions, right? So he didn't show up that first day. Second day, he did show up, and everybody was like, Dick showed up to practice. Everything's all good. Great. But if you really look at how he practiced, he didn't do any team drills. All he did was individual drills, which is really just running routes, catching passes, and that's it. So he really didn't have
He did dap up Josh Allen, though.
He did dap up Josh Allen.
I mean, if we're concerned about their interaction,
they did their handshake,
about their relationship.
But he was never in a huddle with the team.
But we see this every offseason. Like last year, Debo was like basically like trading me almost.
Right, and that was the thing. And then it came to a head, and they paid him. Something happened. Now, we know this is not a financial thing. Diggs just got paid last year.
And Diggs and Josh Allen and the coach all say that they're all good now.
So now the next day, they have a mandatory day 3 minicamp, and they just cancel it.
Right.
And we were going through this in the group chat. We brought up the fact that the Patriots did the same thing. But the big, major difference in the Patriots is they still were together as a team that day. They
Doing
went
something
to go.
as
They
a team.
did a team activity. They played paintball. They were all together. They were all accounted for.
They felt like they were good.
The Bills literally just said, "We're going to cancel. Everybody go home."
Right.
They felt like they were good.
So those 3 days,
that's what they said. They felt like they were good.
those 3 days, Diggs never practiced with the team.
Right.
There is still a lot of just smoke coming out from that. Just reports we're getting. I mean, you saw it on Pro Football Talk. You saw it on all these, tweets, everything. Everybody's talking about something's going on with the Bills. So, again, when there's smoke, I'm not going to say there is fire, but there's smoke.
I'll tell you this. When that Diggs news came out, I was so mad that I didn't hop into, like, drafts just to try to take advantage of
wait.
Dip in his ADP.
So now let's go on to the fantasy implications of it all. From my point of view, Diggs is not going anywhere, right? I don't see them trading him unless something really, really bad happens, something behind the curtains that is just so horrible that just both parties just decide it's just best for them to split.
But we've seen that with Diggs before when he was in Minnesota.
We have.
Diggs wanted to get paid. Minnesota did not want to pay Diggs.
So he tweeted himself out of Minnesota.
Because they did not want to pay him.
All right, but still, like when he gets disgruntled.
I'm not even sure if it was a payment thing. I think he was just unhappy. For whatever reason.
Well, he was unhappy with the offense as well,
I think
and rightfully
I didn't
so.
like.
And now
he didn't like the fact that Thielen was getting as much work he was getting at that time period. So whatever. I mean, but that's bygones, right? As far as now, I don't see them getting rid of Diggs. Diggs is going to be there, right? I don't see them really getting rid of any players. The team is going to be what the team is. What I do feel like the issue is going to be is just the chemistry. I just feel like.
I mean, that's just.
I feel like the team is just going to not play comfortable anymore. Almost play everybody with pins and needles. Yeah. If Diggs is really unhappy with the offense, I could easily see the team, just bending the back saying, "Okay, Diggs, let's now game plan specifically for Diggs." Yeah. And that's not natural. You're basically you're giving into a player's wants and not really focusing on what's best for the team. Now, Diggs, Chris, you said that after week 9 they changed their offense.
Well, that's what he said. He said that they seem to move away what made them successful.
Okay, so from a coaching staff, there has to be a reason they decide to do that.
Right.
I don't understand the reason. We probably don't understand the reason. Diggs probably doesn't really understand the reason.
But we saw the results.
But from
their offense did look like it struggled.
But from them, they felt like that was in the best interest of the team. So if we now say, okay, now Diggs is complaining, are they going to say, oh, Diggs is complaining, let's revert back to what we were prior to week 9? Or are they going to say, let's keep doing what we feel like is best for our team to do, what we think is going to be successful, regardless of what Diggs believes. Remember,
What if those
Diggs is
two
just a
things
player on
align?
the team.
What if those two things align? What if those two things are the same thing?
What if what two things are the same thing?
What Diggs wants and what's best for the team.
But I mean, we can say what if, but what we know is
What we
week
know is they
9
lost.
No, what I'm saying is what we know is from week 9, they did divert. What Diggs wanted and what the team thought was best for them was not the same. Now, we can assume or we can hope that it changes leading up to week 1, but we don't know. Diggs is still upset right now, theoretically, right? He's still upset right now. So that means from the playoff game up to June 21st, whatever date it is, they still didn't rectify that specific issue.
Right.
You know, so again, we're still months away from the season. Plenty can change. The fact that it's a dialogue right now,
I feel like
something most likely is going to change, but I'm not going to ignore what's going on in Buffalo. It's a thing there, and some resolution has to occur, whether it's, one end, the departure, or it's a kumbaya moment. But something that it can't be status quo leading into week 1.
The biggest distinction about this being a something and something to like pay attention to, or this being a nothing for me personally, is does it affect how I draft? Or if I were a betting person, does it affect how I bet? And this literally has zero impact on it. That's why it's a nothing burger for me. We could there's so many different stories that come out. So if I take in all these stories, but it does not affect like where I have Diggs ranked or how I'm going to draft, then to me it's a nothing burger. Like
so my response to that is, again, if Diggs is still upset right now,
we don't know that he's upset. They just said that they were good.
I just said if. I gave it a qualifier. If Diggs is still upset right now, I can only assume that from his point of view, the offense still is what it was post week 9, right? Because if the offense was kind of the way he wanted, I don't see why he would be upset. Again, it's not a money issue. Everything we're hearing about is the offense issue. So if the offense is still not what Diggs desires, and we look at how Diggs' output was or performance was after, quote unquote, week 9, if they decide to keep that same offense, in my mind, Diggs' value depresses a little bit. Now, I'm not saying...
Well, he literally came in and said, and it's not like he didn't produce from week 9 on. He actually produced pretty well. So even if the offense diverted a little bit from what he wanted, he still produced pretty damn well.
Right, but
to me, this is just...
But did it have a dip in production? Or
I don't know. I don't know. I don't necessarily know that there was a major dip. I mean, we're looking at 15 fantasy points, 24, 15, 21, 22. That doesn't seem like a major dip.
I ask you this as well, Chris. If we got the Diggs pre-week 9, when Diggs was happy with the offense, do you see his ADP being higher than what it is now? Like, do you think people would have drafted? Because right now I think Diggs is going after, obviously, the big two, Chase and Jefferson. He's probably going after Kupp. Going after Hill, right? And then he fits in right around there, CD, AJ Brown, Diggs.
Right.
If we knew Diggs was the same Diggs prior to week 9, would he be going higher than what he is now? If the answer is no, then the flip question would be, if we knew we were getting the Diggs after week 9, shouldn't that then depress his value? But it has to go one way or the other in my mind.
But this is a lot of speculation. Again, the last thing that we heard was that the coach was good, Diggs was good, and Josh Allen was good. So for me to go and say, okay, what if
but you heard
Diggs
that
is not good?
Comments like that.
But I also heard a lot. I've heard a lot of this stuff from comments.
People can BS all of that stuff all the time.
We've heard a lot of comments.
They can BS that stuff all the time. So I don't listen to what the coaches are saying. Right. I'm looking at the action, and what the action is showing me that he's not happy.
So are you drafting Diggs later? Is Diggs dropped in your rankings?
Yes.
Okay, so that's where we different.
Every single bill probably.
I think that's a major mistake. To drop, I think that's just like a major mistake.
I mean, if I fade Diggs, who am I taking in his place? There's other receivers that I think are just there, just at the same value.
Gabe Davis is going late. I think Gabe Davis is a value. Josh Allen goes after Mahomes. I'm not a Gabe Davis guy.
Me either.
I wasn't a Gabe Davis. None of us were on Gabe Davis last year, but when I can get Gabe Davis in the 9th round,
I'm still not a Gabe Davis guy.
I'm a Gabe Davis guy.
So going back to your question about Diggs, right? When I say I'm fading Diggs, because again, if I want Diggs, I have to get him likely in the back end of the first, very, very tip-top early part of the second, right? So when I say I'm fading Diggs, I'm basically just saying I'm not going to take him right there. If I'm in the middle of the draft, like say I'm pick 6 and Diggs falls to me in the second round, of course I'm taking Diggs. Right. Obviously.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is I'm not.
Give me Diggs over Amon-Ra, over Devontae Adams, over Garrett Wilson,
Yeah, I would
over pretty
would
much
take-
all those running backs. Give me Diggs.
I would take all those guys over Diggs.
Yeah, I
personally.
think this is like
Oh, wow.
for this type
You
of
take them
news.
all over Diggs?
I would take them all
For this
over
type
Diggs.
of news to affect the whole Buffalo Bills, I think is like ludicrous, to be quite honest. Like
No, I don't
ludicrous.
think so. I don't
I hope people share your same sentiment because I would love to give me some late round Diggs.
All right. So let's move on. Let's talk about quarterbacks for a second. All right. I normally don't do this, but I'm going to do this now. I added this topic to the show sheet.
I still don't get it.
Coming around, huh?
So,
Coming around.
So, hey, if there's not a lot of enthusiasm about this topic, that's why. But I've been looking at Daniel Jones. I am coming around a little bit. Listen, 700 yards rushing, 7 rushing touchdowns. They've added some weapons to that offense. They brought in
Had a
Darren
bunch
Waller.
of mid weapons.
All right.
A bunch
It's
of mid.
still to me, it's still a significant upgrade over what they had.
Right.
Yeah, because everybody was hurt last year.
But this is also the other thing. I'll let you finish.
Go ahead.
There's
No,
more things.
no, I ain't gonna let it. No, play.
No. They added Darren Waller. I think they found something in Isaiah Hodgins, but of course I might be on the island alone. Listen, Darius Slayton comes back. They get healthier. Saquon.
Paris
is still-
Campbell. Put some
Paris
respect on his name.
Campbell,
Put some respect on his
man.
name.
Stop disrespecting Sterling Shepard.
Sterling Shepard looked good in that one clip we saw him in. All right. Is it
And
possible?
Wandale. Y'all sleep. First round pick last year.
He's coming off an ACL.
He's the highest
Yeah.
draft capital receiver they have on their team.
Coming off an ACL.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true.
Can you imagine a scenario where Daniel Jones is QB1
Like number one overall.
overall?
Oh, is that what you meant? I thought you meant like a QB1.
No,
Like you mean like overall? No,
Overall.
hell no. Come on now. This is what I would say though. Look, this is what I would say.
Wait. So last season, he only had 15 touchdowns, 15 passing touchdowns with 5 interceptions. You don't
Yeah.
see an uptick, increasing his rushing capability.
No. So a couple different things. I'm there with you on Daniel Jones as far as like a late round guy. Like if you like fade QB, like those are the type of guys I like to go after. Like I'm not going after like the Aaron Rodgers of the world, the Derek Carrs. Even like to some degree, even like a Kirk Cousins. Like those guys will produce, but I want guys who can give me 35 to 40 plus point weeks, who can just drop that hammer.
Yeah.
And usually those guys require a little bit of rushing. Now I actually think his rushing potentially regresses a little bit this year. Like he had some just like wide, I won't say wide open lanes, but he just had some like very, very long runs. 7 touchdowns is a lot to ask. I don't think I can necessarily foresee that happening or like really
You
project
don't think
that.
so?
No. So in my mind, I just had that as a regression, but I do see positive regression in the passing game from him because just already like the weapons, like Darren Waller, if he can stay healthy, I think that's a significant, addition to that offense. Paris Campbell, I love with adding to this offense, and then you got a lot of guys who I think can just produce. We'll see what happens with Wandale. We'll see what happens with Sterling Shepard. You mentioned Isaiah Hodgins. So it's not the greatest wide receiving corp in the world. Even Darius Slayton, Darius Slayton, he's had some rapport with him, for a deep threat. But the biggest thing to me, this is the biggest thing, is that this is year 2 in the offense.
Yeah.
So when and every year for Daniel Jones has just been a new coordinator. And we were all excited for Dayball last year, and it came to fruition.
Yep.
Like, I banged the drum for Daniel Jones last year.
You did.
Even
You
though
did.
you didn't want to.
I didn't.
And I think he finished as like a top 8 QB. I think he was
Nine.
9.
Nine according to FFPC's
Yeah.
scoring ranking.
Yeah,
He's
so like
QB9.
320 plus points. And there was some down weeks, but there was also those spike weeks, and that's really what I like, especially like when total points matters. But I think his second year in the offense is something that could really, open up that passing game. I think you do need, ideally, Saquon back there.
Yeah.
Or they would have to bring in someone if Saquon didn't show up. But the second year in the offense, and just kind of go back to when he was with Buffalo. I'm not saying that Daniel Jones is Josh Allen, okay, but he can be Josh Allen like.
Light,
We saw Josh Allen struggle his first year, and then that second year kind of really take off. So I really see that there. I would love to see D-Hop on that team. I think that would be like the nail in the coffin as far as like me just like really being all in on Daniel Jones. Because right now I am kind of acquiring some of these QBs early, like if they fall a little bit past ADP. But if I see D-Hop go to the Giants, like I may just really just change my strategy and be looking to like draft Daniel Jones late. So and D-Hop was in New York today. So
Oh man. All right.
I'm out. I don't even know why y'all even discussing this. There's no way I would consider Daniel Jones as being a high-end quarterback.
Oh, a high end at all.
Nah.
But you don't have to draft him. You're not drafting him as a high end. He goes fairly late.
I'm
Really?
probably not
I think he
drafting
goes
him.
after Tua.
Is
You
he?
wouldn't, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm still not. Because that's because
He put up
The-
328
the,
fantasy points, I believe,
they know.
based on
The
the
FFPC.
census knows
Yeah.
that he's
Based
a
on-
phony. Remember last
He's
year?
a phony.
Okay, so remember last year.
Oh, come on.
Let's talk about last year when I was talking about the Giants and
Go
how
ahead.
like they were a good team.
Go ahead.
And both of y'all was like, or maybe it was just Chris. The Giants is not a good team.
Yeah, that was
like
Chris.
they're phonies, yada yada yada.
They were
right?
phonies. Yeah.
And they kind of were, but they were still good in the scheme. I mean, in the landscape. The NFC as a whole wasn't that great.
Mm-hmm.
Daniel Jones, let's not forget this guy in the past has thrown a lot of interceptions, man. Like
But he was a rookie though,
he hasn't been a
with
rookie
a bad,
in like
but with
4
a bad,
years.
with a bad coordinator.
But I'm just saying he still has that in him. I think I think his stats is inflated a little bit with the Saquon Barkley, you know what I'm saying, threat. Saquon Barkley did get a lot of those receptions for him, did score a fair amount for him, did open things up for him because Saquon was a threat. Daniel Jones wasn't a threat to people.
Yep.
If he decides to run more, I mean maybe, but I mean
He has that capability.
he has the capability, but
He's had it throughout. This has not
that's
been
what I'm
like
saying.
a 1 year blip.
He's
Right.
always
There's always
had
been
it,
a run.
right? So we've seen that with him,
Yeah.
and yet he's never really shown much fantasy production with it. So to me, last year was almost a flash in the pan.
He really is though Josh Allen light.
He
with
is.
the same coordinator. He really is
I mean,
Josh Allen
again,
light. He has
last
feet,
year for me is more of a flash in the pan. If he produces this year, then great.
but he didn't really do much from a passing standpoint. Like the flash in
that's
the
why-
pants was like he
That's
didn't
why
do
I keep
anything
saying
from.
I
I,
don't really
can
think he-
imagine him making that
But I don't
jump
really think
because
he has the ability to do much in the passing standpoint. I don't think he has that in him. I think his greatest gift is his running.
No, I think he's an underrated passer. I think you put him in the right system. This is gonna be year two.
He's never shown me to be.
I guarantee he's a top 12 QB.
top-notch.
I guarantee he's a top. I guarantee he's a top 12 QB.
I mean, I don't like making bets like that because what if injuries happen? It's like Lamar Jackson missed pretty much the whole season.
I
You know, if
mean,
Lamar
that's
Jackson.
part of the bet. That's part of the bet.
Anything can happen. I mean, anything can happen.
I'm not making no bet like that. But
Well,
I don't.
That's
I
no
don't see
injury,
him being.
yeah.
I don't see him being a top quarterback. Like if the. Like he's not a
Top
league
12
winner.
points per
He's not a
game.
league winner. Like last
Top
year, was he a
12
league winner?
Points per game.
Was he a league winner last year?
A lot of quarterbacks weren't league winners last
But was
year.
Daniel Jones a league winner?
I think so. 328 fantasy points, top 8 QB for where you got him. Like
Yeah.
basically drafting him like.
I'm not talking about for
in
where
later
you
rounds.
got him.
Also,
I'm not
think about what
I'm
he
not
did in the
talking
playoffs, too.
I'm not talking about for where you got him. I'm talking about what if he was your quarterback, was he a
Look,
league winner?
if you played week 17, he put up 37.9 fantasy points. That's
Okay,
38
if you-
fantasy points.
if
He
you-
put up in week 16.
you
He put
got
up
to that-
25 points.
if you got to that, if you don't get to, is he going to get you to that level? Like you're bringing out these one spike weeks. Yeah, that's cool, but I need multiple spike weeks to get
He's
me
got
to
multiple
that place.
spike weeks. He's got 30. He got a 30, a
He
30,
has
20,
three
21,
30 points games total. 3.
4.
I don't see the fourth one. Maybe
just
my
made
eyes
that
are-
up.
Yeah, you made that up. Yeah, so I mean,
There it is, the fourth. There it is, right there, the fourth.
oh, okay, scroll down. The playoff game, barely cracked 30.
40.
I mean, if y'all want Daniel Jones, by all means, go after him. But I don't see him as being that game-winning quarterback.
Well, I think in best ball,
Oh, yeah,
love
best
him in
ball.
best ball.
yeah, of course, best ball, different game. You know,
But in
obviously.
redraft, I feel like and this kind of comes down to like you just like knowing yourself. So I feel like when it comes to quarterback, I feel like at least historically, I've been pretty good at like identifying quarterbacks and matchups and who's potentially going to give me like, a spike week. I feel like that's a little bit easier to determine in many cases than other positions. So if you feel like you can choose between, if you got 2 or 3 quarterbacks in your roster and you can choose like who to start on the right weeks, like I think he's a perfect like.
Do y'all think? Will y'all still feel this way if
QBVC.
Saquon wasn't coming back?
You said what?
No.
If Saquon wasn't there, would y'all still? So it's all contingent on Saquon being
It's
back.
actually all contingent on Saquon.
Rethinking that. I mean, I don't know. I don't know.
because-
Because then it really does fall on Daniel Jones, his legs and his arms. So in that situation,
No,
I could potentially see it because they won't be able to run the
Just
ball.
gonna stop him. I
No, like he needs Saquon.
He needs Saquon to
But
be
that's
that
not
threat.
saying that.
Daniel
much,
Jones has
though.
an
That's
arm
not-
and he has a good deep ball. And now you got Paris Campbell, and you got Darius Slade
Does he have a good
returning,
deep ball?
and you got Darren Wall. Yes, he does have a good deep ball. He throws a good deep ball.
Okay.
He throws a good deep ball.
I mean, I'm not gonna talk y'all off the ledge with Daniel
I think
Jones
that
and draft him.
yeah.
But there's
I think
no
that
way in
aspect of
hell.
his game opens up this season.
All right, another year with Daboll. We'll see.
I mean, I've been banging the Daniel Jones drum fairly often.
I'm on the train. For this season. I'm on the train.
All right, you should have been on last year.
I was kind of right last year for the most part. I just see him.
He was top 8.
Top nine.
Top 9.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. All right. So this is one that I think you guys have kind of talked about before. I don't know if we talked about it on the pod, but I know we talked about like these offenses that have 1As and 1Bs. And so it was this idea of, can an offense really have a 1A and 1B?
Kind of talked about that last year.
Right. Let's talk about that again. Do you think that Jalen Hurts can produce enough again this season to support two receivers like A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith?
Support, yes. I have not been able to draft Devontae Smith in the second round. I just can't do it.
Yeah, that's really
it's really been hard. No, he's been going to the second round. He's a second rounder per
mid to
ADP.
late second. Really more mid.
Yeah, there's just too many guys that like just knowing that A.J. Brown is there, and I don't want to like use the same term that we did last year with like Hill and Waddle. I said just Hill was just gonna Debo and alpha his way to being the number one in that offense, because Devontae's a damn good wide receiver.
Where did Devontae finish last year, Chris? Do you know?
Let's look it up.
So I look at the Devontae situation as at some point I'm going to need to get shares, because one, like anything can happen from a standpoint of somebody going down and him really kind of like becoming the number one, specifically A.J. Brown. Two, we know A.J. Brown has a significant history. So I think if you play like multiple, if you're a mass or volume drafter, like these guys, even if you don't like them, even if you like in your projections don't have them as being like, where they're ranked, you have to have some shares, because you just never know what's going to happen. If A.J. Brown goes down like the last 4 or 5 weeks of the season, you can only imagine like what a monster Devontae Smith can be. So it's like I can be right in saying that, yes, if A.J. Brown stays healthy, that like he doesn't pay off his second round ADP.
Yeah.
But then I can be wrong or be stubborn by saying like, okay, me not drafting him, or at least taking some shares of him, and not at least like, having the or contemplating the idea that A.J. Brown or Dallas Goedert, may go down, and he may be, take the reins as a wide receiver one, and then has overall wide receiver one in his potential, at least like during that time frame. Like you have to consider those things. So I think just given the talent level, I'm gonna have some shares. Ideally, I get them when he like kind of falls, ideally to like the third round if I can get him. And then if not, then like later in the season, I may like pivot and then just try to like acquire a few shares.
Yeah. So A.J. Brown finished as receiver 5 with Devontae Smith at 9. I mean, 5 and 9. Do you think that they can repeat that again this season?
Yeah, but look at the fantasy point differential though. And this is also like something to consider, because I know like wide receivers are just going off the board, and this is man, please, especially for like the non-rookies, the veterans, like when you go back, like think about like how these players like produced for you on your team last year. Did you feel comfortable starting them week in and week out? Were they just like, set in your lineup and like set it, forget it, like didn't really care? Or were you like just scared and you like playing this kind of game of like, all right, I'll play him this week, I'll sit him on this bench this week, and then like you were just missing the spike weeks and then starting him on the weeks where he was like not. So you have to consider that. So you said he finished at what? Wide receiver what?
9.
Wide receiver 9 gave you 240 fantasy points. Okay? To me, that's like Amari Cooper gave you 239 fantasy points.
Right.
Mike Evans gave you 225 fantasy points. What did you feel about starting him last year? So injuries play a role. So to me, like total fantasy points to me is like less of a thing, and really it's more about like points per game. I really want my players, like if I'm drafting you in the second round, I need to be able to have confidence.
Be a lock in my lineup, essentially.
A lock in my lineup, but have confidence, or at least have the upside to give me 300 plus fantasy points. That's really what I'm looking for. Really, with my top 3 picks, can you potentially give me 300 plus fantasy points? But definitely with my second pick. And not everybody's gonna be able to do it, but like the guys I'm taking in the second round are guys who I feel like, okay, if they stay healthy, they're gonna give me 300 plus fantasy points, or at least give me points per game to match that.
Yeah. But do you think that Jalen Hurts can do it again and support two top 10 receivers.
Conventional thinker would say no, right? It's just so difficult to do. To have two receivers that basically are that productive where they're so far ahead of the field. Like they're both
top 12.
outscoring other teams' wide receiver ones, right? So conventional thinker will say no. And I like to try to stay conventional. Like I think everything always kind of goes back to the mean to some extent.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But if I was drafting, I guess the best way I could say is if I did decide to draft Devontae Smith, and we could have the same conversation with like your Tyreek Hills and your Jalen Waters, right? Same type of discussion. But if I was drafting Devontae Smith in round 2, I kind of have to tell myself that Devontae Smith then has a better season than A.J. Brown, or he outproduces A.J. Brown.
Right.
I can't draft Devontae Smith with the assumption that both of them are going to go off.
A.J. Brown goes in the second round.
He goes in the first, second. Back in first.
Well, what's his
second.
ADP? I feel like his ADP is like second round.
It's back in first, early second.
Okay.
So if I was to draft Devontae, I basically have to. I'm basically betting that A.J. Brown is not going to have a greater season as what people expect, and Devontae is actually going to be the guy.
The other thing though
too,
is look who's going after him. So it's not like there's like just a bunch of studs that are like going after Devontae Smith. So that's the other thing to consider. That's why I like,
But think back to even last year. We were drafting Devontae Smith in like the 6th to 8th round, right? He's always been the number 2 wide receiver there. Like that didn't change.
Yeah.
Would you say the offense? I don't think the offense really changed either. I think they were just more productive last year.
And I've heard a lot of people lean on the idea that, they were dominating in a lot of games last year. So they were just kind of, just bleeding out the clock, running the ball, fourth quarter, not really passing. Maybe this year, with just, with, regression in game script, they're having to pass a little bit more. They're in more competitive games.
But even if they have to
They were in the Super Bowl last year, so their schedule is more competitive.
But even if they have to pass more, it's still so difficult for you to have 2 wide receivers as top 12 wide receivers.
Like I'm looking at this board right now, and some of these guys have question marks, but there's no way I'm drafting Devontae Smith over Derrick Henry. I don't care how old he is. If he's a starting running back for the Titans, I will be drafting Derrick Henry.
Well, that's positional
over
value
Devontae
right there.
Smith.
Some people would just rather have a receiver there than a running back.
But to me, but that's the thing is though. Again, go back and look at like how wide receivers produce and how running backs produce. I don't think you can just like have a blatant statement just like I just want a wide receiver
that's the zero,
and then your running back like scores 80 points.
Running back argument. The zero running back argument is these running backs they're such a fragile position that they can get hurt.
But if my wide receiver is only putting up 250, like to me that's a flawed. Flawed logic because you're not just when you draft Derrick Henry, it's not like if he goes down that you just taking a zero. You'll have somebody back there.
But you're not going to have anybody putting up Derrick Henry type numbers.
You don't need somebody putting up Derrick Henry type numbers. If you have Derrick Henry for 10 games and then whatever backup or whatever fill-in you have, if that person outscores Devontae Smith, then to me that's like the zero wide receiver argument makes zero sense.
No, it makes sense.
Or if I back him up with
because you say if you have Derrick Henry for 10 weeks, that's cool. But at the end of the day, when the playoffs come and the tournament comes, if you don't have Derrick Henry then all that stuff is
But you
irrelevant.
don't know that you're going to have Devontae Smith then. You don't know that Devontae Smith is going to hurt.
But the wide receivers don't get hurt as much as the running backs.
But you still got to start running backs.
Oh yeah, you got to start them. What I'm saying is, it's all about your risk tolerance. Do you want to take a position that's so fragile where these guys get hurt? I mean, Derrick Henry's actually been hurt the last 2 years, right? If not 3. So if you want to take,
but you say that he only missed I think 1 game last year.
No, he missed multiple.
No, I think he only missed 1 or 2 games.
No, he missed multiple because Dontrell Hilliard was starting. But again, it's all about it's just risk tolerance. If you believe Derrick Henry is gonna last the season, then it's probably the better pick. But if you believe Derrick Henry is slowly breaking down, again, is not gonna play the full slate of games, then he could be great week 1 to week 10. But week 1 and week 10 doesn't matter.
Week 1 to week 10 get you to the playoffs. And if I got Tajay Spears and Tajay Spears ends up being his backup, then it does matter.
But if you're there and you don't have him, Tajay Spears you can't guarantee Tajay Spears is going to give you Derrick Henry
I can't guarantee that Devontae Smith is not going to score 10 points in the playoffs.
I'm not saying that. What I'm saying
so there's a lot of play there.
Like what I'm saying is Derrick Henry, the replacement for Derrick Henry, you can't guarantee is going to score the same way Derrick Henry is going to score.
But I can guarantee that if Derrick Henry stays healthy, I mean, you can't guarantee anything, but I think most people will project if Derrick Henry stays healthy and Devontae Smith stays healthy, Derrick Henry's going to outscore
But that's
Devontae
the big
Smith.
if. The if is, will Derrick Henry stay Henry?
But a big if is that Devontae Smith is going to somehow start scoring 280 plus fantasy
no,
points.
you're looking at it wrong. Again,
I'm not looking at it wrong.
It's risk tolerant.
I'm not looking at it wrong.
No, you are, because you keep.
It's all risk tolerance.
No. The point I'm making is, when you draft Derrick Henry that high, you're hoping that he's going to last the season.
I'm not. I don't hope that.
If he doesn't last, then it's
I don't hope
honestly
that.
not going to be a valuable pick, because when you actually need him
Yeah.
the most, he's not going to be able to produce anything.
I disagree.
For you.
I absolutely disagree. Because I think for you to try to plan out your entire
Look at all the
season,
Derrick Henry teams last year.
for you to try to plan out your entire team over a 16, 17 week course, I think is like.
But isn't that
is
what
a
people do
fallacy.
when they draft players?
No. I'm drafting Derrick Henry. No, that's
when
absolutely
people
not.
draft, talking about, well, look at their week 17 matchup. Look at their week 6. They're literally drafting because they're assuming these players are going to play during the
Did Derrick Henry
tournament
play in
and
week
playoff
17
weeks.
last week?
I doubt it.
Wide
Did who?
receivers get help. Did Cooper Kupp play in week 17 last week?
Nope.
No.
Okay, so like you can't. We don't know.
But that's a different argument. When you compare
don't know.
running backs to receivers, running backs have a higher chance of getting injured compared to receivers.
So then, if you feel comfortable about if I'm right that Tajay Spears is the backup, and if I'm right that he can produce 70 to 80% of Derrick Henry, and I can get Tajay Spears in double-digit
that's a
rounds.
big gamble for a guy that's never even had a snap in the
Hey,
NFL.
that's a gamble. That's a gamble I'm worth taking.
That's like saying
That's a gamble I'm worth
That's like if
taking.
you were to assume last year Hassan Haskins.
I wasn't a Hassan Haskins fan last year.
It's not about whether you're a fan. What I'm saying
It is about it with our fan. Like this is where it comes down. It comes down to like if you are correct. If I'm correct when it comes to Tajay Spears, then it works out.
Listen what I'm saying. It's the assumption that the backup running
It's
back.
not an assumption. It's not an assumption. For you, it's an assumption because you may not be that confident in it. For me, it's not an assumption.
No, what I'm saying is whoever the guy that's replacing Henry, whoever you want to name it as,
Okay.
whether it's Spears, Haskins, Hilliard, what I'm saying is if you can't assume that guy, if they replace Henry, is going to give you that type of production where it's going
But
to be
you can't
useful.
assume. You can't assume. If you feel like it's not that comfortable, you can't assume. This is the same issue that we had with Alexander Madison and Dalvin Cook back in the past, where I would take Dalvin Cook and I would say I would just handcuff him with Madison, and you would say Madison's not that good and he couldn't do this and that. And in that situation, when I plug Madison in, when Derrick,
no.
Okay.
You're having a different argument because I never said anything about somebody being good. It's not about a good or a bad thing.
But if I assume that Derrick Madison,
listen what I'm saying.
or Alexander Madison
when
in
somebody
that
drafts
position,
a receiver that high compared to a running back, they're basically saying they believe this receiver will last on their team longer and still be able to produce even into those money rounds. And they have this concern that these running backs likely are not going to be available for them at that time period. And if you have that concern, especially if you've been burnt in the past, then you're most likely to say, let me go with the receiver that I feel more confident in compared to this running back that might be great for me for those first 7-8 weeks.
Yeah.
But then after that, if he's not there for me, then what's the point?
And my issue with that, so this is the thing. My issue with that, so when I draft right now, we've already had this discussion. These wide receiver ones in the first round, I'm taking them over all the running backs. Because I know that they have it in them to produce 300 plus fantasy points.
Okay.
But then when I see a major drop off, I'm not just going to say, okay, I'm just going to completely ignore the running back position and just take the next best wide receiver.
Yeah. But again,
no, for me, it's a tiered approach.
But that goes back to what I was saying.
Once my wide receiver ones in that top 1 or 2 tier have gone off the board, now I'm going to pivot to a running back that I feel can give me 300 plus fantasy points.
The very first thing I said, if I'm going to take Devontae Smith in the second round, I am making the assumption that Devontae Smith is going to end up surpassing A.J. Brown.
And when does it happen? When does it happen?
Wait. If I am making the assumption that Devontae Smith is going to pass up A.J. Brown, then that is a good value there because you're taking A.J. Brown in the back end of the first, early second. If Devontae Smith has better production than that, then that's a worth a pick. And again, it's all about a person's preference. You're trying to make it as black and white. It's not black and white. Everybody drafts differently. Some people are going to value the running back. Some people are going to value the receiver. Some people are going to have risk tolerance. Some people are not going to have no risk tolerance at all.
But
so
we're not talking about
how
those
you
people.
decide
We're
to,
talking about you. So you said that if you feel like Devontae Smith will outscore
That's
A.J.
not what
Brown.
I said. That's not what I said. No.
Okay, in
no.
what scenario?
Let me say what I said again.
But let me ask you this question. Let me ask you this question.
Let me say
Let
what
me
I said
ask you
again, so you know. If I'm drafting Devontae Smith in the second, if I am,
okay,
the reason I'm drafting him in the second is because I'm telling myself he is most likely going to surpass A.J. Brown as the main receiver there.
And in what scenario does that happen?
If he just has a better season or if A.J. Brown gets hurt.
So A.J. Brown can get hurt. So we're talking now about a wide receiver getting hurt.
I never said AJ Brown can't get hurt.
Okay, so then if you're drafting Devontae Smith with the idea that like AJ Brown may get hurt and that's how that's his avenue to getting a wide receiver.
When you are drafting Devontae Adams,
you're conflicting your argument about running backs in argument.
Listen,
here's the thing: you're saying that you're drafting Devontae Smith over Derrick Henry because the position isn't as volatile. But you're saying that you're only drafting him with the idea that the non-volatile position is going to produce an injury.
Let me say it again, because y'all not listening to me at all. I say if. Again, I keep saying if.
Yeah.
If I decide to draft, first of all, I never said I'm drafting Devontae Smith in the second. I never said that.
We can throw out hyperbole
but that's the question.
Ifs and potentials all day long.
But the initial question was, can Devontae Smith and AJ Brown be worth the picks in those top 2 rounds, or can they still produce top 12? And what I'm saying is, if I'm in a draft and I see Devontae Smith in that second round, and I'm saying, okay, should I draft Devontae Smith? If I do decide to draft him, the only reason I'm drafting him is because I'm telling myself there's a chance, or I'm basically hoping that year he can surpass AJ Brown. That's the only reason.
And how does that happen?
There's plenty of ways that he can outperform. He can have a better season.
I'm asking you specifically.
Okay.
Do you feel like Devontae Smith can outperform AJ Brown?
No.
Okay, then what are we? What are we arguing?
Because I keep saying if I am, you're not listening to what I'm saying. If I
don't know too many people that think that Devontae Smith is going to outperform AJ Brown and both stay healthy.
The people that are drafting him in the second, I haven't drafted.
I don't think they think that. I think 95% plus people who are drafting Devontae Smith in the second round do not feel that Devontae Smith is going to outperform AJ Brown if both stay healthy.
Listen to what I'm saying. If I draft him, I haven't drafted him. So what I'm saying has not even come into fruition yet. But for the team I do draft, if I do get Devontae Smith in a second, what I'm basically telling myself is I'm taking him because I have to bet or have to gamble because we don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
We literally don't know anything.
We have to make assumptions. We can make
assumptions, but we don't know.
Okay, so, but when you draft Devontae Smith, you're making an assumption.
Can I finish my statement?
Okay, but you're making an assumption.
Let him finish.
If I draft Devontae Smith in a second, I'm basically telling myself this team right here, the way this team will be successful is because Devontae Smith is going to outperform AJ Brown. That's the narrative I'm making for this team. Not every team I build, I have the same narrative.
Right. That's an assumption,
it's just that
though.
Simple.
That's an assumption,
You have to make an assumption every team you build.
So if you were volume drafting, I'm assuming that you were not volume drafting thinking to yourself, because you just said it, that Devontae Smith is going to outperform AJ Brown for whatever reason.
If I took Devontae Smith in the second, I am thinking that.
But I'm saying as a volume drafter, the majority of your draft is not going to be that.
It depends. I mean, because then it talks about the philosophy of volume draft. If I'm going to volume draft, do I want to draft the same team over and over?
No, we already talked about that.
You're putting all your eggs in one basket. As a volume drafter, you want to basically take different scenarios into account. You basically want to say, okay, this team will be great. This AJ Brown team will be great.
Let me ask you this. If both stay healthy, who outscores who?
I don't know. I can make my guess right now.
So you don't know.
But look, I can make my guess right now. And obviously my guess is going to be AJ Brown. That's why AJ Brown has the higher ADP. But listen to what I'm saying. There's a not zero chance that Devontae Smith can outscore AJ Brown. There's a non-zero chance for that. And if that does happen, the guys that are taking Devontae Smith right now in the second are going to have probably a better season than the guys that are taking AJ Brown in the first or second.
I mean, there's a non-zero chance that Puka could outscore Cooper Kupp.
Yes.
I'm not taking Cooper Kupp like anywhere near.
We're not talking about where you're drafting. I never said draft. We are
talking about draft.
No, I'm not.
We're talking his ADP currently is in the second round.
Let me get my point across. I never said draft Devontae over AJ Brown, regardless of what you think. I never said that. I never said where you're drafting. What I'm saying is, if I draft him, I'm telling myself a story on that team. And the story I'm telling for myself for that team is Devontae Smith has such a great season. He actually had a better season than AJ Brown, if I'm going to draft him on that team. Which is why, to make this full circle, there's no way in hell I'm going to draft a team with AJ Brown and Devontae Smith. Because I'm basically saying there's no way I see both of them flourishing.
Right.
For me, it's one or the other.
But the likely one is AJ Brown. The likely one for you is AJ Brown.
Yeah, but likely doesn't solidify nothing to me. I draft with the notion that anything can happen.
You don't draft with the notion that anything could happen because you
I
still
do draft with the notion everything
even
can
with
happen.
each team that you draft, you still have to make an assumption. Just like you made the assumption that Devontae Smith is going to outscore AJ Brown, you have to make assumptions.
I didn't make that assumption.
Nobody's just randomly picking players
I didn't
and
say you're
throwing
randomly
darts.
picking. What I'm saying is you have to tell yourself narratives. There's a chance that
narrative-
Devontae Smith can outscore AJ Brown.
Yes, by making an assumption.
No,
that is assuming.
No,
Your
I didn't
narrative
make
is
if I say
assuming.
there's a chance, that's not making an assumption. That's basically saying there's a chance. There's a chance Devontae
You're
Smith.
assuming there's a chance.
All right, guys, we're beating a dead horse at this point.
I'm not.
All right,
Come
all
on,
right.
man.
All right, guys, so let's talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers for a second. I feel like we can have that same discussion that we had on the last segment about Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown and actually have that same conversation with Deontay and George Pickens. How do you guys see that receiver room? And then also, let's talk about Najee. He's going – I thought that in my draft he went in the back end of the second. Looks like normally he's going in the third round. Let's talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers
He
for
went
a
in
second.
212 in your draft, so that'll let you know everything.
Right.
Somebody just reached on him.
Yeah, so, like, how do you feel about that receiver room?
Yeah, I feel like, the Steelers, for me, are a hard team to evaluate. And because they have some young players, so you just anticipate that these young players, Kenny Pickett in particular, even Najee Harris coming off the injury he had last year, George Pickens coming in the second year, you anticipate that these guys are just going to improve this year.
Yeah.
But I always go back to their head coach and their OC, really, Matt Canada, who nobody really likes because of how he's been calling plays. But to me, their head coach is somebody who wants just like to win in difficult ways. He wants to win with defense, and he wants to run the ball and control the game, And I think he has a very significant impact on the game flow. So with that respect, they've really beefed up the O-line. Najee's healthier this year. They seem to like Jaylen Warren, and I think he's going to have a role this year. I don't necessarily know that this passing game is really going to take this huge leap. And then even with Najee, like when I started drafting in May, there were drafts where I was getting Najee in the 4th round.
Oh, wow.
So that was great. And obviously, my perspective on it's going to change now that he's going in the 3rd and in your draft 212. But in the 3rd, I mean, it really just kind of depends on who's going around him. But I think I would probably lean, let me get one of these top tier quarterbacks over him, or take a gamble on someone like a Gibbs, because I just feel like Najee's upside is capped with Jaylen Warren there. I did not like how they used Jaylen Warren last year on 3rd down and the hurry up. And if Najee's not going to be in there in the majority of those situations, and we know he's not really this explosive back, and it's, to me at least right now, not this just high-powered offense, to me that really limits his upside, and I don't see him as this guy that's just going to, where I can expect these, spike weeks,
Yeah.
If he stays healthy, he may get there at the end of the year. He'll have 1,000+ yards, a couple hundred receiving, maybe 7 to 8 touchdowns. But if you had Najee on your team last year, he had 1,000 yards last year.
Yeah.
How did that feel having him on your team last year?
Yeah.
It didn't feel that good. If you could have made a trade in a 1 quarterback league, just your home league, Patrick Mahomes for Najee Harris last year, would you have done that?
Of course.
So that's kind of honestly, that's how I approach it. I try to go back to last year and get a good feel of how did I feel on a week-to-week basis when these guys were on my team, and it didn't feel that good.
Yeah.
And then when you get to Deontay and Pickens, same thing with Deontay. If you rostered Deontay last year, it did not feel good.
Right.
So you're gonna have to tell yourself a story that this team's gonna really sort of kind of improve in passing efficiency, maybe in rate per play, or maybe just in pass volume. And that to me is just that's just too much.
Yeah,
he didn't score any touchdowns, and if he would have scored X amount of touchdowns, he would have done this. Yeah, he had a lot of targets and this and that. But I don't know. I just this offense. I just don't really like. And then you bring in Allen Robinson, and y'all know I'm not an Allen Robinson guy,
right.
but still, you bring him in. Calvin Austin's healthier this year. You still got Pat Freiermuth. They drafted Washington, the other tight end. That's potentially another red zone threat. I don't know. 6th round for me, where Deontay's going in FFPC currently, there's a lot of other guys that I would rather just take gambles on over him.
Yeah.
So really the only guy that I'm, maybe really going after is maybe Jaylen Warren. And even then, because I'm not necessarily sure he's a true, okay, he's going to get 80 to 90% of the touches, or sorry, 80-90% of what Najee got. I don't know. I kind of look for him. I will say this. The last thing. Sorry, I know I'm talking a lot. The last thing. The one thing that may be their saving grace or where they may hit is because of the division that they're in. We're seeing this division now has transitioned to like now you got, obviously you got Cincy. And really Cincy's like strength is the passing game.
Yeah.
Okay, so like that to me like increases potential scoring and opportunities throughout a game, plays and whatnot. Yeah. You got Baltimore, okay? They brought in a new OC, obviously, and they're talking about increasing, having a quicker pace of play, spreading out a little bit more 3 wide receiver sets. Obviously, they brought in Odell. They drafted Zay Flowers. They got, Bateman coming back, and they still have Mark Andrews, et cetera. Lamar's talking about just passing a lot more. So that's also something they have to contend with. And you got Cleveland, who a lot of people are picking as like the offense that will take that next step, and they're doing the same thing.
Yeah,
you're hearing the same thing. So the division that they play in may be like their one saving grace, where they have to they're going to be forced to throw in games. Like it may be that they want to run, but it may be that you're forced to throw.
Right,
what you want to do versus what you're forced to do are two different things. So, but yeah, I'm kind of lukewarm on them. I don't know.
All right, so tell me, what's your perspective on this Pittsburgh Steelers offense? Are you seeing any fantasy value based on Deontay Johnson, going at 6th round, I believe? Did you say 6th round?
Yeah, he's going around
6th round. Yeah. Pickens going in the 7th. Do you see any value? Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm very high on Deontay Johnson. I'm very I want as much Deontay Johnson as possible because I think it's going to be a regression thing.
Yeah.
If you and you just had the stats up, but he had 147 targets last year.
Yeah.
That's crazy. You know. If I knew a player was getting that many targets and 0 touchdowns, I mean that in itself is insane. Just looking at positive regression at this point, I would expect at least with 147 targets, at least 4 touchdowns.
Right.
And that's probably the bare minimum to me. I think that's something that they did go into the offseason being very aware of, and most likely trying to correct that this year.
Yeah.
Now, they did bring in Allen Robinson, who I actually like this year. They've talked up how they want to use him. He's going to probably play the slot. He's most likely not going to be somebody they expect much of to carry the load. So, I mean, I think he still has talent. Of course, he doesn't have separation, but if he can just be a good safety blanket for Kenny Pickett, I do know they've been working together quite a bit. You still got Deontay on the outside, can just get open anytime he wants.
Yeah.
I think it might hurt Pickens a little bit, though. I think it might hurt Pickens a little bit. But yeah, I love Deontay Johnson. Now Najee, the running back Jaylen Warren, I don't know what to expect there.
Yeah,
I don't know what to expect there because I still am concerned that Jaylen Warren might eat more and more into Najee's role.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be shocked because we heard it last year. I wouldn't be shocked if they decide Warren is the better option. I don't expect it.
Hold on, wait. So are you saying he just takes that job?
If not takes the job, maybe it'd be kind of like a Pollard Zeke thing from last year. You know how Zeke was always the nominal starter, but Pollard was the more valuable fantasy option and actually with the bigger threat last year.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's going to be due to injury or just a reduction of play, but I don't think they're going to be able to keep Warren off the field the way people expect. And maybe that makes me increase Jaylen Warren's fantasy value as far as ADP. Maybe I should be drafting Jaylen Warren a lot higher. But I'm just making an assumption right now, you know. But when I look at the Steelers, I'm so high on Deontay Johnson right now. He's the guy I'm targeting. I feel like he's going extremely too late. I mean, like I said, 147 targets. The next highest person was over 60 targets less.
Yeah.
That's
significant.
That's an immense.
How did he have only 882 yards on 147 targets?
And that's a good question Abby's asking. How did he have that? But then we could try to figure out and say, okay, maybe Kenny Pickett just wasn't ready.
Yeah.
Maybe Kenny Pickett was still trying to figure out an offense. Maybe Kenny Pickett and Deontay just didn't have that chemistry right. And again, I feel like they went into the offseason knowing that's the case. Deontay's still young, and I think this is his contract year because I think maybe he signed a 2-year contract last year. He knows he has to do something to be able to get that next deal. So I want that. You know, I want that. And at the end of the day, just having those targets gives you that floor.
Yeah.
You know, we're not talking about a guy drafted. What round is he drafting this ADP right now? What? That's the 6th round.
6th round.
So,
But his floor was pretty low last year, though. His floor was like floor.
I don't
like,
want to say it was low. It just
it
wasn't.
it was a bunch of single digit weeks.
Was it a bunch of single?
Yes, it was not good. I mean, if you rostered Deontay Johnson last year, I don't think I had.
But again,
really any
but we're
Deontay.
also looking at a guy that scores 0 touchdowns. Like
I know, but
I don't-
so he goes from 0 to what, 4?
if I heard a player had 147 targets, I would think 4 would be his floor.
Yeah,
now,
give me all
obviously,
the
we
running
saw it
backs
didn't
that are going
happen.
over there.
Obviously, we saw it didn't happen. But if I would just if you were to ask me this before last season, I would say he has to at least score 4, like at the minimum 4 touchdowns. And who's to say he doesn't actually have a good season? Who's to say he doesn't actually have like
He could.
8 to 10 touchdowns?
It's
You know,
just-
and if you give him 8 to 10 touchdowns with that same exact production as far as
12,
last year,
13, 16, 4, 11, 8,
Yeah.
9, 8,
Yeah,
10,
it wasn't
6,
great. I mean,
9,
he had some
11,
4s
14.
in theirs.
But like when you
some
get
6s in there.
like 3 or 4 single digit weeks or like a 10 and 11, you're
You
not starting
sit
that.
him,
You're
yeah.
not starting
You
this
sit him,
guy.
so you probably
so
be
by the
guessing.
time he
Of
gets you to a
course.
20-point week in week 15,
Of course,
you,
but do
you-
this.
He was probably on the,
but
he
do
was
this.
probably on the waiver wire.
Throw 4 or 5 touchdowns just in that total.
You
4 or
still
5
guessing.
touchdowns.
You still
Four-
guessing.
4 or 5 touchdowns was that 4 times 6. That's already what, 20 points.
Yeah.
You still guessing.
So just add 20 points just to those points, and that gives you a fair floor. And again, I'm talking about more of his floor. I think he's going to actually produce
Yeah.
even more
Sixth
than
round,
that.
6th round. I need upside. 6th round.
I mean, this just might have been an off year. Rookie quarterback. Did they even start Kenny Pickett to start the season? Or was it? It was Mitch
no.
Trubisky, right?
Mitch, yeah.
So he wasn't even the guy. And I think when they switched to Pickett, they
He started
didn't
falling
they didn't
off
really
when they
have
switched
that rapport with each other.
Yeah.
Right. Like I think he had better rapport with Trubisky than he did with
Yeah.
with Pickett. So again,
Offensive
I
line
like
play
to
will help.
I like to look at those players where I've seen them do it before,
Yeah.
and I've seen Deontay do it before.
Yeah.
And now I see him as having a discount. It's almost the same way I see like a Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews. Like I've seen them do that type of production before. And right now, you can hope that last year was a one-off.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't one-off, then it's a value.
Yeah.
If this is a trend, then okay, now you're in trouble a little bit.
Normally, my gut feel like pretty much aligns with analytics and kind of that thought process. This is one where like my gut feel is telling me like I understand the targets, I understand the regression in TDs, and I just still don't want it.
Like okay, so let's look at the targets. Okay, so real quick, look at the targets.
I want nothing to do
Look
with
how
it.
many double-digit target gains he had.
I know.
We got you.
Oh,
Trust me, I'm trying to get where you at.
If he just converts those,
I'm trying to be with you.
and then just add some touchdowns with it.
Yeah.
In the 6th round,
I hear you.
there's not many players in that round that you can take that will give you that type of production.
That's true.
And I would say this is probably his worst season. I'm not gonna just confirm this, but I would say this is probably gonna be one of his worst seasons of his career.
So you would you take him or Cam Akers?
Okay, so again, that's positional value. It depends how I'm building my team. Do I need a running back at that time or a receiver? But if you would
Or
ask
you
me
take
to
Treylon
back him, I'd
Burks or
probably
Deontay Johnson?
Deontay.
Okay.
Probably Deontay, yeah.
Michael Pittman or
Deontay.
Mike Williams or Deontay?
I like Mike Williams. I think he's going too late too.
Brandon Ayuk or Deontay?
Probably Deontay.
Oh, Deontay on that one. That's easy.
Probably Deontay.
Yeah, I'm gonna take Brandon Ayuk on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he like I said, he's fairly priced. I just feel like,
Like I don't think he's
Upside
priced at his
wise.
ceiling.
Yeah.
I think he's got to price more of his floor.
He is kind of priced.
If he's priced low,
yeah.
then when you take him, if he has the same kind of production as he has last year, then you're just getting whatever value you draft him as.
Okay,
but if he actually able to convert those things and do well, then he's actually going to be
Let me ask you
a
this.
good value at that point.
If you draft him in the 6th round, is he a lock to start for you week 1?
Yes,
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
See, not for me.
he's
no.
a lock to start from him.
Like he probably wouldn't start. That's how I know. Like I'm not high on the guy.
Right.
You draft him in the top 6,
I
7
mean,
rounds.
if
and
you
they're
draft
not
somebody,
starting,
not starting,
anybody
yeah.
you draft in the 6th round has to start for you week 1.
not necessarily.
Because
they
think
should.
about it. Think about the draft. You're talking about 2 running backs, 2 receivers, and 2 flexes. Those are six picks in itself.
Yeah, but
So
sometimes,
why would you draft a guy in the 6th round and have him on your bench to start the season?
DeAndre-
That's a wasted pick.
Well, some of these situations are questionable. Like going back to your other point about like sometimes we don't know. Like the Philadelphia Eagles backfield is one. DeAndre Swift is going after
If
Deontay
I draft
Johnson.
DeAndre Swift in the 6th, I'm starting him week 1.
Unless
I hear something that's
Not,
unless
because
there's
what if I come back like in the earlier drafts, I was able to get James Conner in. I have James Conner a lot in rounds 8. James Conner is likely going to be starting for me week 1 over a lot of guys I took in the top 6th or 7th round.
then why'd you take him in the 6th?
I took James Conner in the 8th
Know what I'm saying? You just
because
said
of upside. I don't see this like
so
upside
who-
for DeAndre
so
Swift
who
is
in
that
the
he's the
sixth-
number 1 running
who
back.
in the
for
6th
Philadelphia.
round has upside, but you don't feel comfortable starting in week 1, and you would start over
It's not-
James Conner?
Okay, so yeah, James Conner is a good benchmark. So like.
Like a guy that you were like, I'm going to take this guy in the 6th because I see the upside, but I'm
So-
not going to feel comfortable starting week 1.
And
then the question I'm going to ask you, when do you feel like starting him?
Let's phrase it this way. I
Okay.
feel more comfortable in starting James Conner over these players going in the 6th round.
Okay.
I'll name them right now. Week 1, because I already know who's playing with. Christian Kirk, Deontay Johnson, Mike Williams, DeAndre Swift, Brandon Ayuk. We don't know what's happening with Dalvin Cook. I'd probably start Rashad White, but that's a close one. We'll see what happens in that situation.
Okay.
I start him over David Montgomery, although that's a free preview game. Definitely over Mike Pittman and over Treylon Burks.
You pretty much said the whole round.
Pretty much.
So who are you drafting in that 6th round then? Because
In the 6th round,
I guess
I'm
the
usually,
question.
the 6th round, I'm usually going after probably right now, I'd probably still go after Madison. I am grabbing Cook because right now I think his value
Would you
is low
draft
for me.
Madison and
I'm definitely taking White.
Would you play Madison and Cook and White over Connor?
Madison, Cook, and White over Connor, likely, but it depends.
Okay.
White, I don't know. White, I don't know.
So you're not answering my
White,
question.
White, I don't know.
Here's my question. Who will you draft in the 6th? Like you're drafting this guy in the 6th, but week 1 you're not going to start him.
I just listed him. I didn't mention Alexander or Madison. I didn't mention Cook. I
So
told you
what I'm asking, you would draft those guys in the 6th?
Yes, because those guys have unknown upside. I'm going with your logic that like I don't know what's happening in Philadelphia, but I do know that there's a situation where DeAndre Swift just kind of takes over the majority of that backfield.
I guess that's where we differ.
All-star type year.
if-
So if I can like draft a guy like Connor in the later rounds, and I feel comfortable because people don't like Connor because they think he's going to get hurt, he's on a bad team, et cetera, et cetera. But the first couple of weeks or week 1, assuming that he makes it through the offseason, he's going to be healthy.
And again, that's where we differ. Any guy I'm drafting in round 6, I'm going to start over a guy drafted in round 8. Like there's no question. I'm not taking a upside. Somebody's going to help me down the line type player in my 6th round.
Well, if I know Connor's ADP is in the 8th round and I don't have to reach for him in the 6th, 7th round, I'd rather just try to build a strong team and try to get a guy at his ADP, even if I know he's a value at his ADP. Because he's a value at his ADP, that's why I'm taking him at his ADP as opposed to trying to say, okay, I think Connor's a better play than a player that's currently going in the 6th round. I'd rather just get him at his ADP. That way I can try to stack my team. Marquise Brown is a similar player.
I mean, I got you. I'm just saying for me, I don't see how you can say I'm a drafted. Like I'm a feel good drafting this guy, but I know I'm not going to start in week 1. Like that sentence in itself is odd to me.
An extreme example of this is because again, you gotta approach. You said it yourself. You have to approach it like you don't know what's going to happen.
But what I'm saying is I'm not going to draft a guy though in the 6th. Like and whether I feel like I don't know or not. If I'm drafting you in the 6th, I'm starting you week 1.
Oh yeah, I don't agree with
like
that.
Like you're in my lineup.
I don't care who you are. Your ass can be on the bench.
Of course,
you can find your ass on the bench if I don't like you.
Of course, I preface that by saying if news comes between now and the start of the season, like say we hear Penny is getting the starter reps, and I already drafted Swift. Of course, I'm not going to draft.
Nah, early drafts, I was getting James Conner in the 8th round. Okay, I guarantee, I will bet money that your favorite analyst, your favorite projector, okay, your favorite fantasy football go-to who does rankings, I guarantee right now they will have James Conner ranked in their top 12. I guarantee it. So all this like nonsense, I don't like it. So if I can get him in later rounds after I've built out my like projected season-long starters, and I know I can start him for the first couple of weeks, like that week 1, people forget like how much we just don't know. So I want knowns in that week 1. I'm not gonna give up a week 1 loss. Like,
so let's switch.
Because he can score 20 plus
because
points.
you're speaking more from a James Conner POV, and I'm speaking more from a guy you're drafting.
No,
at
no,
six.
I'm not speaking.
No,
I'm
listen.
not speaking,
Wait.
That's
Let
important.
me state what I'm trying to say. Okay, let's take James Conner totally out the equation.
You can't.
Wait.
Do that.
Let me say what I'm saying.
You can't do that though.
If you're in the 6th round, because you don't know whether you're going to get James Conner in the 8th when you're in the 6th. When you're in the 6th round, you don't know what's going to happen in the 8th. You can target James Conner, but that doesn't mean you're going to get him.
Right.
So if you're in the 6th round, are you really going to draft the guy that you feel like there's a chance you're not going to start him with the risk of not being able to get James Conner or any other player? Like, is there a guy you're drafting the 6th saying, this guy is going to be on my bench week 1?
You know why? Yes, because there's multiple guys like that I feel comfortable starting week 1 over some of those guys going in round 6 where I'm just not sure what their role is.
So,
what the offense is gonna
so
look.
if that's
I
the
can
case,
list like 2 or 3 right now.
So if that's the case, why not draft one of those guys around 6 and then another one of those guys in the next round? Why not get 2 of them?
What do you mean 2 of them?
You just said there's multiple guys you would start over the guys in round 6.
Yeah.
So why draft any of the guys
I'm
in
talking
round
about
6?
week 1.
That's what I'm saying.
I'm drafting the guys in week 1 or in round 6 because those guys in round 6 have higher upsides over the course of the season. So
you feel like they're going to be useful down the line?
Yes.
A round 6 guy?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, guys.
Potentially.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Guys, we've gone way over at this point. This is our episode
Heated.
this week.
I'm ready to go. Let's go round 2. Overtime. Let's go.
Overtime. Guys, thanks for tuning in. Please like, rate, subscribe. We're out.